The white two-story house in Brentwood always felt artificially quiet, like everything inside it had been staged for a perfect family postcard. The tiled roof got cleaned every month. The pine trees lining the driveway were trimmed to exact inch proportions, and my father's silver Bentley always sat centered in the driveway. A not-so-subtle reminder that here, order wasn't a choice, it was a duty. I still remember being a child, standing behind the dining room's glass wall, watching my mother use a short ruler to align the napkins down to the millimeter before dinner. Everything had to be just right. Warm yellow lights, the scent of sandalwood candles, and piano music playing from hidden ceiling speakers. But the one thing that never got adjusted in that house was the silence, layered between veiled compliments and carefully disguised contempt. I was the second daughter out of 3 Whitaker children. My father, Richard Whitaker, was a seasoned name in Los Angeles finance, head of strategic investments at a major bank for nearly 3 decades. He dressed like he was headed into a boardroom even while watering plants. To him, a person's worth wasn't measured by ethics or loyalty, but by resumes and school names. My mother, Catherine, was a former state beauty queen who went to law school at Stanford but never practiced. After marrying my father, she funneled all her ambition into becoming the polished face of upper-class society, leading hospital fundraisers, hosting charity galas, and, most of all, grooming her children into worthy representatives of the Whitaker name. Tyler, my older brother, was their pride and joy. Graduated summa cum laude in economics from Princeton, earned an MBA from Wharton, and walked straight into a senior management role at my father's firm. He was the model son, well-spoken, always wore a vintage Swiss watch, married a senator's daughter, and never once arrived late to a family meeting. Chloe, my younger sister, was the perfectly polished gem, studying law at Columbia, her hair always sleek like fine silk, her smile constant, and every step she took looked like it belonged on a runway. She was now planning her wedding to a rising congressional candidate, a move my mother saw as elevating the family image. And me? I was the name people brought up last, if they brought it up at all. As a kid, I wasn't drawn to princess gowns or French dolls that my mother arranged around my room. I liked dismantling Grandpa's old cassette players to see how the chips worked. By 13, I had taught myself Python using an old library book. At 15, I built an e-commerce website for a neighborhood bakery. But no one at home knew, and no one asked. One night, when I was 16, while we were dining with a visiting banking executive, my father turned to me and joked, "Still tinkering with those computers?" I nodded. "Good. At least it keeps you out of trouble. But don't mistake that for a career. Tech's fine for men. But Whitaker women? Know their place." That line was repeated often enough to become a wall, not one made of brick, but just as confining. My high school, a prestigious academy in Beverly Hills, was where heirs and heiresses passed down seats in macroeconomics and advanced golf. While classmates discussed Ivy League applications and parent-arranged internships, I got a part-time job at a computer repair shop in Westwood. "Lowering yourself like that for what?" my mother asked when she found out. "To learn the value of work, Mom," I answered. She sighed like I had uttered blasphemy. I knew, within that house, I was the one crack in the marble facade called the Whitaker family. Not beautiful enough like Chloe, not impressive like Tyler. I was rarely in the family portraits in the main hall. If I was, I'd be in the back, my face half blocked by the chandelier light. But I didn't need center stage. I needed something else. A shot to prove my path wasn't wrong. At 18, I left home with a partial scholarship to Caltech and an old laptop I'd repaired myself. No one showed up for move-in day. My mother sent a card instead. "Wishing you wisdom and the strength to know when to stop." I folded it and tucked it into the last pocket of my suitcase. Not to treasure, but to remember that their doubt would be the fire fueling my climb. I moved into a tiny dorm room in Pasadena. It was so small I could stretch both arms and touch opposite walls, but to me, it was the first free space without judgmental glances or sighs heavy with meaning. Caltech wasn't for the faint of heart. Every day felt like drowning in formulas, algorithms, and discussions that ran past midnight. I stayed up until 3 a.m. with my eyes glued to the screen. Not for grades, but because finally I could use my brain without being mocked for being too dry. I worked part-time in the server room. Loud, hot, and ignored by most. I liked it. The fan noise calmed me. On weekends, I cleaned datasets for a molecular biology professor who never remembered my name, but always paid on time. While others went home or traveled during breaks, I stayed. Took extra shifts to save on rent. One Thanksgiving, my mother called only to say, "Don't let your skin go pale, dear. Girls look less appealing that way." Graduation happened under a glaring sun in the campus courtyard. My honors degree felt like a footnote to 6 years of nonstop work. 4 undergrad, 2 grad. I invited the whole family. The only response was from Mom. "Chloe's engagement party is that weekend. Hope you understand." I kicked off my heels and walked out barefoot. The only person who hugged me that day was Lauren, my sophomore year roommate who once watched me cry because of a transcript error. My first job was at a medical startup in Santa Clara. My salary was $62,000, a far cry from the numbers my father once projected. I didn't care. I wanted to build something real, not decorate a LinkedIn title. The platform I helped develop was a care coordinator assistant, a system matching patients to specialists based on symptoms and doctor schedules. I called it a living map. To me, tech should serve people, not complicate what was already an exhausting healthcare system. But at home, everything I did was reduced to a hobby. During a Christmas dinner in Bel Air, my father asked, "So, which startup are you at now? Another one of those Valley Ventures?" I explained my work. He sipped his wine, then turned to Tyler like I'd just played a wrong note. "Chloe's helping on a major medical data lawsuit, federal implications. That's real impact." Chloe smiled politely, clutching her champagne flute like it was a trophy. "And Alice," Mom chimed in, voice soft as central air. "Still living that minimalist lifestyle, huh? So rare these days, renting a 1-bedroom, no espresso machine. I really admire your simplicity." They laughed. I don't own a fancy machine because I like boiling water myself. I drive an old car because it's cheaper to maintain than a Tesla. I live small not because I'm broke, but because every polished thing reminds me of Dad telling his friends. My oldest likes the do-it-yourself route. Not sure why she makes it so hard for herself. I used to think, just one more success and they'll understand. Then, another year passed. A hospital in San Jose adopted our platform and cut patient wait times by almost 60%. Still no call. Still no curiosity. In March of my 26th year, I got an offer from a small venture capital fund. They wanted to invest in a project I'd been quietly developing on nights and weekends. I turned down my full-time job, began living off savings and a personal loan. Dinner in May at home, I brought up the decision. My father went quiet for 10 seconds, then gave a dry laugh. "I can't believe you're leaving a stable job for an app. Alice, who's going to use it? Hospitals that can't afford it or patients who can't pay?" "Exactly," I said. "The ones who can't afford it are the reason I'm doing this." He didn't respond. My mother immediately changed the subject, asking about Chloe's wedding dress. No one looked back at me for the rest of the meal. I went back to my tiny apartment, opened my laptop, and typed 3 more lines of code into the platform I was building. I had no idea what the future held. Only one thing was certain. In the house I grew up in, my worth had always ranked lower than the portrait of Tyler hanging in the hallway. And I wasn't going to fight for that place anymore. I'd build another world, one where I didn't have to ask to be seen. The idea came on a rainy June night, huddled in my cramped kitchen, staring at a chart showing the endocrinology waitlist at Santa Clara Hospital. A former colleague had sent me internal data, names of diabetic patients, thyroid issues, pituitary disorders, all waiting weeks just to speak to a specialist. One person waited 32 days just to talk for 15 minutes, then another 6 weeks for follow-up lab. Meanwhile, clinic rooms sat empty 3 afternoons a week because of canceled appointments or no-shows. Everything was misaligned, simply because no one had redesigned how the system worked. I opened my laptop, launched a blank editor, and typed the first line. Connect patients to specialists through smart priority route seeking, secure health. No fluff, no extras, just solving the right problem. I withdrew $49,680 from my savings, maxed out a secondary credit card, bought the domain, rented 2 months in a co-working space in Fremont, and registered an LLC. Secure Health Solutions, Inc. In the mornings, I freelanced for a pharma company to cover rent and meals. At night, I coded, built the interface, structured the database, solo. Coffee on standby, kitchen counter for a desk, a plastic chair I picked up behind my old office. The first 37 emails to investors went unanswered. On Zoom calls, I was interrupted by things like, "Do you have a co-founder? I mean, someone with a strong technical background? Are you aiming to be CEO? Or maybe CTO would be a better fit?" To them, I was a 20-something girl. No MBA, no Wall Street pedigree, no warm intros from the right funds. They didn't say it outright, but I heard the judgment in every inflection. Call number 38 came on a morning that still smelled like wet asphalt. A woman in her 40s appeared on screen, navy sweater, bookshelves behind her. "I'm Jessica Barnes. Read your brief through an old Stanford friend. Got 20 minutes for hard questions?" I nodded. She grilled me on HIPAA compliance, latency in multi-state document access, medical response times. I answered each part, even diagrammed the processing flow. At minute 19, she smiled. "I used to run a hospital network." The way you frame the need, it's chillingly accurate. A week later, an email arrived. $200,000 investment approved, terms attached. Jessica didn't just send money. She included 2 links, one to a UI design job board for women in tech, and another, Alicia Monroe's resume, former operations manager at a clinic in Arizona. Or interview her. Gut feeling says she's your match. I called Alicia at 8:30 p.m. Her voice was hoarse, midnight shift. I read the project description. "This isn't just an app, is it? This could actually ease the frontline burden?" No fancy pitch. That answer alone got her on the team. 3 weeks later, we were 3. Me, the platform builder. Javier, a back-end engineer who dropped out to care for his mom with Alzheimer's. Alicia, the organizer, scheduler, license wrangler, product driver, and morning coffee enforcer. We worked in a borrowed room inside a defunct driving school. First floor reeked of rubber tires, ceilings stained from rain leaks. Our desks were planks nailed together so loosely the screens trembled when we typed. Yet each line of code was written with more than just skill, with the deep knowledge that someone out there was waiting to be connected to the right doctor at the right time. I didn't tell my family. The last email from Mom asked if I wanted to attend Chloe's pre-wedding event in New York. A chance to meet top names in federal law. I marked it unread, then deleted it. Secure Health had no headquarters, no branded mugs, no marketing team. But after 8 months, we had a working prototype, 3 clinics on board, and over 300 patients enrolled, 89 of whom received earlier diagnoses by at least 2 weeks. One night, as Alicia filled water from a leaky filter, she said softly, "If this works, we won't just have a company. We'll have proof for every person who was ever told they weren't enough." I just nodded. Inside, calm settled like a quiet tide. Gentle, but strong enough to erase every snide laugh from dinner tables I used to sit at in silence. August heat in Fremont was brutal. The co-working AC died last week. The repair guy said parts had to come from Arizona. Alicia split a frozen bean bag from the nearby market into 3 cloth-wrapped packs for our necks. Javier taped foil over the window frame. The server still ran, the screen still glowed, the code still flowed amid the wheezing of an old fan. In that heat, An email from St. Helena Regional Hospital arrived. We'd like to run a pilot. It wasn't the biggest hospital in California, but it was part of the Massachusetts General Network. That meant, do well here, and real decision-makers would notice. We didn't send a traditional pitch deck. Alicia and I flew to St. Helena on Wednesday morning with a pre-loaded demo tablet, presenting life in a glass-roofed meeting room. We simulated 3 patients: an elderly woman with heart failure, a teenager with neurological symptoms, and a factory worker with chronic hepatitis. The system offered 3 tailored referrals, factoring in doctor availability, travel distance, and urgency. The neurology chief sat silent for 10 minutes, then nodded once. We'll start with our stage 2 stroke patients. The pilot launched mid-month. 3 weeks in, the dashboard lit up. Wait times down 66%, satisfaction up 40%, cancellations down 29%. A head nurse sent us a thank you note. I no longer make 17 calls a day just to schedule. I finally have time to eat lunch. That line, simple, real, made me cry in the middle of the night. Not from emotion, but from realization. I wasn't building software. I was lifting the weight off a system that had been straining for too long. Word spread. 6 more hospitals from New Hampshire, Colorado, and Florida reached out for pilots. Alicia managed calls across time zones using a hacked-together Google Sheet. Javier rebuilt the admin dashboard from scratch. I stayed up 2 days, writing API endpoints for outdated public hospital software, code no one ever wanted to touch. 3 months later, we raised our Series A, with a 10-slide pitch deck and raw data from 9 hospitals. The meeting with Blue Ridge Ventures took place in a glass-walled office in Palo Alto. I wore an old white shirt, hair in a high bun, and talked about patient conversion rates like I was talking about my own family. We secured $4.5 million, enough to hire a tech team, upgrade security, and move into a real office in San Jose. 3 months after that, we raised $28 million in our Series B. The company was now valued at $65 million, led by a Chicago-based health fund. In the paperwork filed with the IRS, Secure Health officially had 23 full-time employees, 3 satellite offices, and contracts with 51 healthcare systems. The media began paying attention. The first article on Health Tech Today called me a non-traditional founder. The next one from Med Innovation Weekly used the phrase, "The quiet woman restructuring America's patient scheduling." I didn't post any of the articles online. I didn't message my mom. I didn't send Chloe any photos. I didn't reply to Tyler's text when he said, "Heard you're still coding apps?" When our 4th investor asked about an IPO, I said I'd consider it in the next quarter. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Marcus Levine, head of tech investments at Goldman Sachs, San Francisco branch. We're leading next year's IPO pipeline. Secure Health is on our high-priority target list. That sentence, from the very financial institution my father always used as a benchmark for worth, made me stand up and walk around the room just to breathe. I didn't tell anyone in the family, not because I was still angry, but because after all these years, I understood. Not everything needs to be shared with people who only see you through a checklist. The preliminary valuation Goldman sent, $100 million pre-IPO. They proposed an announcement in early Q2 to coincide with National Health Week. I nodded, sent back the NDA and a draft schedule. Alicia walked into the conference room just as I signed the final document. "Your brother just emailed the company account," she said, raising an eyebrow slightly, asking if he could meet to discuss an investment opportunity through Whitaker Capital. I smiled, stood up, and poured a glass of water. "Let's leave that for now. We've got a few hospitals in Seattle to deal with first. They deserve the priority." Alicia nodded, then stepped out, leaving the door gently ajar, and a silence that no longer felt heavy. It felt free. That year's Whitaker family dinner was held at Tyler's new mansion in Pacific Palisades, complete with an olive tree courtyard imported from Italy and wrought iron gates that looked like a statement of status. I arrived on time, parking my 2012 Honda Civic behind Tyler's Porsche and Chloe's Audi SUV. No one looked up as I stepped out. Except the gatekeeper. He nodded slightly, eyes tinged with pity. Inside, the golden chandelier light reflected off the marble floor. Crystal glasses clinked between half-finished conversations about the stock market, tax attorneys, and Chloe's son's scholarship. I stood near the bookshelf with a glass of water, listening to my father tell a guest. Tyler is running our new real estate investment fund, over $30 million in the initial stage. Chloe's been busy preparing for a major hearing next week. That case might hit national coverage. He paused, glanced briefly in my direction, like noticing something slightly out of place in an otherwise perfect scene. And Alice is still experimenting with tech. It's a creative field, but unclear future. No one asked for more. No one needed to. Dinner began with baked crab bisque, prepared by the private chef. My mother, in a silver silk dress with perfectly curled hair like she walked out of a magazine, raised her glass. To a year of true accomplishments for the Whitaker family, let's celebrate rewards earned through real effort. Her emphasis landed just as I set my spoon down. I gave a half smile, eyes drifting toward my sister adjusting her pearl necklace. Chloe smiled gracefully, as if she hadn't recently messaged me asking to introduce a few tech contacts for her fiancé. Tyler was talking excitedly about a high-rise project in Miami that could land the fund on a financial magazine cover. Mom nodded proudly, her eyes gleaming. When it came to my turn, no one invited it, no one asked. My father broke the silence after a long pause. Alice, your mother and I have been thinking about your life choices. I put my glass down. What do you mean? My mother sat upright, voice even, like she was reading from a memo. We think it's time to end the remaining financial support. It's necessary for you to seriously reassess your path. Support? I laughed. I haven't received a single dollar in over 2 years. But you still use the Whitaker name, my father interjected. Still lean on the family's reputation to stay relevant. Relevant how? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. At dinners like this, where I'm treated like an alien at the table? Chloe chimed in gently. You live in your own little world. But the reality is, you don't align with how a family of standards operates. Tyler nodded. We're not criticizing, but look around. Everyone here is making real impact, and you're just somewhere out there with your laptop projects. I nodded, pushed my chair back, and stood. Good. From today on, don't worry about my impact. The family can rest easy. I won't tarnish anyone's name. Mom sighed, like I was overreacting. You always takes things too far. This is just advice. No, I cut in. This is a verdict. And it's been delivered loud and clear. Tyler leaned back, looking at me with a mix of pity and smugness. Hope you find something that truly matters. Sometimes people need to hit a wall to realize they're wrong. I looked around the table. Every face was familiar. Every glance felt foreign. They didn't need to know I was preparing an IPO with Goldman Sachs. They didn't care about the upcoming Medical Future Weekly feature on secure health. They just needed me small, dimmer, quieter. I grabbed my bag and walked out of the dining room to the sound of forks and knives cutting into the main course. My mother called out, Alice, come back for dessert. The chef made your favorite cheese soufflé. I didn't turn back, just said, loud enough for all to hear, I don't need dessert. I've already had the main course. A full serving of clarity. The door closed behind me, the laughter inside still going strong as if nothing had happened, but I knew the seat I left empty tonight would never be filled again. I was just about to step off the white stone steps when my phone vibrated violently in my purse. 3 missed calls from Alicia. A message came right after. Just 2 lines. SoftBank approved. 40 million. Valuation at 100 million pre-IPO. I froze in the stone-tiled entryway, my palms suddenly cold. A voice cut through from behind. Alice, don't leave before we finish this family matter. I turned around and locked eyes with my father's hardened stare. Before he could say more, I raised my hand. Sorry, I have to take this call. Can't it wait just a moment? My mother asked, her voice full of irritation. I pressed the phone to my ear, still standing in the tiled courtyard, as if the world inside that house no longer had anything to do with me. Alicia, I'm here. Her voice came through loud and clear, the excitement barely contained. They just signed. SoftBank confirmed the $40 million investment. Official documents will arrive early next week. Goldman's popping champagne at the office right now. I paused a few seconds, eyes darting toward the window, where everyone was now watching me through the soundproof glass. Can you repeat the valuation? 100 million, pre-IPO. Could increase depending on the mid-round valuation review. And, Alice, Forbes reached out. They want you for the Women Rebuilding America feature. I took a deep breath. Perfect. Schedule the morning meeting. And thank you. I hung up, straightened my jacket, and walked back inside, under the frozen gazes of my family. Chloe set her wine glass down so hard it made a sharp clink. Tyler stood up, raising an eyebrow. So? That was something serious. Huh. Yeah, a bit, I answered shortly, stepping up to the table, facing my parents. SoftBank just invested $40 million in the company you once called a laptop game. My mother's eyes widened. What did you say? Secure Health just hit a $100 million pre-IPO valuation. Goldman Sachs is handling it. Yes, that Goldman. Yes, that Marcus Levine. Dad's old colleague. Called yesterday to congratulate me. No one spoke. Even the housekeeper in the corner stopped what she was doing. My father placed his hands on the table, his eyes shifting from shock to calculation. Your company really reached that stage? He's past that stage, I said. We're negotiating a government contract. Our hospital network now spans 12 states. Tyler gave a short cough, like trying to reestablish his footing in the conversation. So? You've been keeping this a secret from the family all along? I shrugged. Nothing to keep. None of you ever asked. Chloe clasped her hands, her smug smile completely gone. You're actually the CEO? I nodded. Still hold 52% equity. That means full voting control. Another silence. Then my mother spoke, her tone suddenly syrupy sweet. Well, Alice, we should celebrate. You should share this with the family. Let's throw a little party in your honor. I cut her off without missing a beat. No need. Nothing's changed. You all made it perfectly clear I wasn't Whittaker material enough to keep any form of support. My father adjusted his collar, reclaiming the tone of a man who once closed billion-dollar deals. Seems like there's been some misunderstanding. Now that we have the facts, perhaps we should revisit the idea of the family investing in Secure Health. No, I cut in sharply. The cap table's closed. No room for new investors. Then maybe a board seat? Tyler interjected. At least to represent the family. Also, no. The board consists of people who believed in me when the company had zero revenue. Chloe sneered. Though you're cutting us off entirely? I shook my head. No, I just don't owe you any share of opportunity. Don't try to rewrite this relationship by latching on to my success. My mother sat down, gripping the arms of her chair. You're being unreasonable. What's unreasonable is a daughter ignored for 28 years being acknowledged only after a call from a Japanese bank. My father sighed. All right, we understand. But if any collaboration opportunity comes up in the future, I interrupted, again. If that ever happens, it'll come from the part of me that's human. Not the part that shares your blood. No one replied. I turned, walking to the door. Just before stepping out, I turned back, looking each of them in the eye. Oh, and Madison, if your boyfriend still needs a healthcare policy proposal for his campaign, Secure Health's consultation fee is $75,000 for the basic package. But I'm sure you already knew that. Then I walked out, Down the dark road leading from the Whitaker estate, I didn't look back. Their gaze no longer held enough weight to stop a single step. Alicia entered the office carrying a bouquet so large it covered half her body. White orchids, Ecuadorian roses, a few sprigs of purple hydrangea. Under the warm light from the glass ceiling, everything looked almost fake. From your mom. She placed the bouquet on the conference table, voice carefully neutral. There's a card. I didn't open it, just glanced at the embossed lettering on the cover. Proud of you, Mom and Dad. Without reading it, I handed the bouquet to my assistant and asked her to send it straight to the pediatric ward at Oakland Medical Center, where Secure Health was piloting its chronic care program. Those kids needed color and encouragement. I didn't. The IPO happened on Monday morning. NASDAQ lit up with Secure Health's blue and white logo on the giant Times Square screen, underneath a slogan, Transforming Access. Changing Outcomes. I didn't speak at the bell. The person standing in the center of the frame was Alicia, ringing the traditional bell, her hair neatly tied back, eyes brimming with tears. She deserved that moment more than anyone. We closed the opening day at a $220 million valuation, the stock up 46%. My personal account crossed $112 million, not counting unvested shares. My phone flooded with messages, journalists, investors, old acquaintances, former teachers, even some high school friends I thought had forgotten me. But I called only one person, Aunt Martha, my mom's aunt, the one who once secretly sent me a congratulatory card when I got into Caltech on a scholarship. You did it, kid. Her voice broke. Even after being treated like a shadow all those years, I kept my promise to keep my personal life completely separate from the so-called Whitaker family. I didn't block them, didn't reply either. A message from Mom popped up 3 days later. We should celebrate together. I booked a table at Nobu. Bring a guest if you'd like. I sent one line in return. Fully booked. We'll arrange a meeting when it's time to discuss the pediatric patients in Los Feliz. My new apartment sits on the top floor of a glass tower in Mission Bay, San Francisco. Outside the windows, the bay stretches in a quiet blue-gray every morning. But I'm rarely there. Nearly all my time since the IPO has gone to a project I'd nurtured even longer than Secure Health, the Alice Whitaker Foundation. No last name attached, no Whitaker legacy, just me, as I've shaped myself since the day I left that house on the Bel Air hillside. The foundation launched with $20 million, with a clear mission to support girls from low-income communities in pursuing STEM education, especially those who've been excluded, called not a fit, or told that machines aren't for girls. We don't hand out PR candy, no tear-jerking videos. The website homepage has just one line. You don't need their approval to begin. You only need to not abandon yourself. Every week, I visit a public school in East Oakland or a struggling suburb in Sacramento, talking about algorithms, healthcare system architecture, and the loneliness of being the only kid in class who preferred wiring circuits over painting nails. An 8th grade girl once asked me, eyes steady and bright, if everyone thinks I'm not good enough, is it still worth trying? I answered without hesitation, they don't define your limits, you do. The Forbes feature ran 3 weeks after the IPO. The headline didn't talk about millions or female tech leaders. They chose this: the girl once called a failure, and what she's doing for those pushed aside. Chloe sent an email afterward. Attached was an invitation to her husband's fundraiser. He's now running for state representative. She wrote, "We could turn Secure Health into a platform for public health policy reform, Alice. You have influence. Brian needs voices like yours." I didn't respond. Alicia did, with 3 precise lines. Thank you for the invitation. Secure Health is not participating in any electoral political activities at this time. They call me the daughter who returned, the young woman changing American healthcare. But no one asks why I was silent for so many years. No one admits they once turned away, once diminished me, once erased the existence of a daughter who wouldn't fall in line. I don't need them to anymore. Family, to me now, is Alethea. It's the engineers on the 6th floor. It's the kids who email asking for sample code for their school robotics project. It's the ones who believed before a single dollar was raised. It's the community I chose. Not blood. Not legacy. I didn't send a warning before mailing the letter declining a seat on the Whitaker Family Foundation board. No explanation needed, just one sentence. My presence does not require a position to have a voice. They sent it, then continued the meeting with the development team, building our new remote care platform for post-discharge mental health patients. Secure Health's second product, designed by 3 engineers who had each undergone childhood trauma therapy. In that meeting, I didn't mention my family. No need. I focused only on what's worth keeping, the people who know what it means to start from less than nothing, the ones who never call your dreams too much. At the Franklin High School talk, I stood behind a plain wooden lectern, facing hundreds of watchful eyes. No projector, no glittering stage lights, just a regular Friday in a multi-purpose room turned auditorium. But every nod, every scribbling pen from the girls below held my gaze tight. I spoke about that first failed prototype, about the 40-second email that went unanswered, about an office that reeked of paint and sandpaper. No one responded with pitying chuckles or condescending stares. They listened. Like every piece of this story was a shard of their own. At the end, a girl with curly hair and a faded uniform shirt stepped up. She didn't ask for an autograph or resources. She asked, "If I'm not smart enough for a top college, what can I do?" I looked straight at her. "You can build something no university teaches. The courage not to back down. The rest, you'll learn on the way." She stayed silent, but her eyes glimmered with something I'd once seen in my own reflection, long ago. Not long after, I received a letter from my father. Not by phone or email, but a rare handwritten note. Cream paper. Neat, round script like from an old job application. "I'd like to meet to understand your work. Not as your father, but as someone who failed to understand what he should have from the start." I placed the letter on my desk, read it once, then tucked it into a drawer. Not because I wasn't moved, but because I didn't need it to keep going. I used to think being acknowledged was the destination, but I've learned this. If it takes success for them to hear you, then what they're listening to isn't truly you. It's just the outcome they can't deny. So I stopped hoping for recognition where I never belonged. Instead, I chose to make space for voices that were never allowed to speak. The Foundation's advisory team currently has 6 women, each from a different field: pharmaceuticals, environmental tech, health data, and one who dropped out of college due to depression and is now an analyst at a startup valued at $10 million. We don't meet in sleek glass-walled boardrooms. Our meetings happen at casual coffee shops, in the backyard of our office, or in open-ended Zoom calls. The discussions aren't about quarterly growth, but about this: how to make sure a 16-year-old in an underserved area has the same shot as a student in Palo Alto. The media calls me the new model of female leadership. Some people message me asking if I plan to enter politics. I read those messages the way I read reviews on a tech product. Consider, evaluate, and file away if you're relevant. What takes most of my time isn't titles or interviews. It's the routine reports from our system. Number of patients connected early, wait times reduced, dropout rates pulled below 5%. Those numbers don't make headlines, but they mean a kid in Ohio sees a therapist in 3 days instead of 3 months. They mean a Latina woman in Texas finds a tumor while there's still time to treat it. I can't change everything, but what I touch, I give it both hands, no fear of the dirt. No need for the spotlight. One Tuesday evening, just as I wrapped up a strategy meeting, Alicia knocked on the door and held out her phone. Her name's Amy, the younger sister of one of the students you met at Franklin High. She just sent a thank you video. I think you should see it. In the video, Amy stood in front of the camera, her voice trembling. "I got into the summer computer science program at UC Berkeley. I didn't think I could do that. But Miss Alice said, 'You don't need permission to begin.' I believed her." The screen dimmed as the video ended. I leaned back in my chair, silent. Outside the window, the city lights flickered like Morse code, sending out endless signals. But this time, I didn't need to translate. I knew exactly what I was doing. Not to win back trust from those who once turned away, but to protect the right to believe. For those still standing at a starting line, no one even bothered to draw. Sometimes, success isn't about how far you climb. It's about this. When your feet finally find steady ground, you reach back and pull someone else up. I once wore the name Whitaker like an ill-fitting coat. Now the name Alice appears on news headlines, on the front of our office building, on conference invitations, without any explanatory footnotes. My name, not because it belongs to a famous family, but because it stands for one thing, that everyone has the right to redefine success in their own voice. Alice's story proves that recognition doesn't need to come from those who once denied us. She didn't become a symbol because her family supported her, but because she stood firm in silence and built success from the wounds they left behind. Alice chose action over argument, service over revenge. In a world still crowded with rigid molds, she is a reminder. Anyone can rewrite their worth through what they build, without asking for anyone's permission. What do you think about Alice's decision? Would you do the same if you were in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family and life.